My name is Richard Arroyo. I'm an animation director at Ubisoft and a manager at iAnimate. I've been in the industry for a little bit over 20 years, or maybe a little bit more. And I worked on so many projects from TV, commercials, and obviously games. Recently, I just finished up working on Watchdog as an animation director for Montreal. And I'm currently doing some marketing for, Rainbow Six and some other projects which I'm working on that I, sadly can't talk about, but it sounds very, very cool and very promising. I first started off, learning computer programming, as like many kids back in the days, it's like art wasn't really a career path for when you tell to your parents, like, hey, I want to be an artist or I want to be an animator. And most parents were like, no, why don't you be a doctor or a lawyer or something, right? So I kind of convinced, say, hey, I'll do computer programming since, I love being very manual, hands-on. And there's a bright future in that field. So I started a lot of coding and I used to work at a shop, building computers and machines. And eventually, that passion working with computers kind of like led into the possibilities that, hey, you can work with computers and you can, work in TV and film. So there was a program where you can just like join to learn. It was, what was it? Animation for TV and film actually was kind of the title. And I was like, wow, that sounds exciting. I get to work with computers and I potentially could work in the entertainment industry, like the whole idea of Hollywood and Disney. And I was like, man, this is amazing. So I jumped on that and really just dived in my education. I literally slept at school because that's really what I wanted to do. It was like there was no other option for me than to work in the entertainment industry. And I say entertainment industry because, for me, that's what I work in, right? It's not just the game industry, it's entertainment. And I think game as a platform is a phenomenal way to express yourself. But so when school started computer animation, well, I did computer programming and then I stopped, converted into computer animation and kind of got lucky there, making some, good acquaintances, meeting some great friends that kind of helped me through my education and kind of plugged me into the animation industry. So that was kind of like my way into becoming an animator, which technically, well, actually, when I first started, I did not want to be an animator. I thought I was going to be a technical director because I was scripting and I was, doing a lot of code and some rigging. And I was like, hey, I wanted to be a TD. But when I did my first interview, the director looked at me and it's like, man, you're very expressive. You're almost like an Italian, right? My hands are always moving. And just kind of said, hey, you should be an animator. And that's how, my animation career kind of started. It's like I was kind of pushed and encouraged to go into it. Trial by fire, there's a huge advantage of that, right? Sometimes you could be taught something, it's like, here, you need to do it like this and that's it, right? And you don't really know why you're doing like this. But like for myself, what the advantage I felt is like I had no choice to try so many things and find out what worked and what didn't work. But for every scenario, every situation I was placed, I learned so much more because I was in that environment. Schools are totally different, right? If we're talking about, brick and mortar and online. What you learn at a brick and mortar is like, and I think it's amazing with a brick and mortar is the kind of the community, being surrounded by other artists. But when you don't have that and you need to learn on your own or find other mediums to help you learn, you need to really commit to that. And that the success you get out of it is your own. And you can't say, well, they didn't teach me, right? It was really a choice. And like I said, for myself, I really made it a choice to learn and pick up everything I could so I can succeed in this, or I can make this my career and part of my life. So to me, like those two things play a big factor on what kind of artist you will be or what kind of artist you can be. As you grow up in the industry and you become, higher in the ranks, you really need to understand the difference between, having some buddies and friends, and then you have professional allies. The work that it took to get there or to kind of get myself into a place of comfort was, I mean, I'm still working at it, but it took a lot, even though, like, I had certain skills, but those skills were not industry ready. They were not truly what the industry wanted, or did not meet the expectation of what I had to do to apply. I think that was something that I learned quickly, and that I had to make, I had to show that I needed help, and I had to find a way to reach out to people and make sure that they wanted to help me, right? And that comes, I think, by experience, is kind of learning who's sincere, right? Who's gonna see you for you as an artist, and and feel like they resonate with you and say, hey, here, let me help you, or let me provide you some suggestions. You just really have to come in with open mind, no ego, and I mean, really, I think that is kind of like what I've learned at a young age is good is not good enough, right? That was kind of like what I've learned when I started my career. As a director, what I find interesting, or what really appeals to me and makes me want to help others, you can see me on Twitter. Sometimes I might do some critique, or I do a off the wall, just like, hey, just, let's do a Zoom session. I'll look at your animation. I'll give you some pointers. That they come open-minded, come ready, and be concise, be precise with what you need to do. And then if someone gives you something to work on, don't try to do everything at once. Often I say that I animate, like, an animator will like do a great walk cycle or run cycle or great combat, and it looks phenomenal. It's amazing. Everyone's like, wow. Even studios will be like, wow, we should hire this person. But they only did it once. That does not make you ready, right? You need to prove that you can do it again. So it takes time. Don't rush. Like, find yourself a strong foundation before you're going to start saying, hey, I could take on the world, or I could animate on I want to animate at Disney. I have a great acting shot, but if you only have one, you're going to be doing thousands of them. So be ready. So when you're going to show something, be ready. As a director at Ubisoft, how I like to work, and this is a mixture of different, learning, from theater, working with sound directors, art directors, casting, voice, done a lot of things, and I applied that as my own process. When I'm going to give something to an animator, I like to give something that is well thought out, well planned. I make sure that I give a brief verbal description or written description of what it's trying to be achieved. Some creative briefs, some imagery that they can look at to draw upon, and then I provide reference. And it's what I call like having that visualization. As an animator, you need to understand what the director is trying to achieve, and you need to understand, the same lingo, right? The same language and the same expression, saying, okay, the director is looking for this. My character is this, right? My character is example, right? He or she is, brave and very daredevilish, right? Takes a lot of risk. But that's different from someone that's brave and calculated, right? So understanding what you're trying to do before just doing, it's like, oh man, I have an amazing shot. I'm having an action shot, or I have a game animation, whatever, a cycle or cinematics or a character intro, right? It's understanding, right? And there's no difference between, as I see it, between an animator and a director. There's no difference between, a sound designer and a sound director. We're all trying to achieve the same thing. We're all trying to communicate an experience towards the audience, and make them, ride this emotional ride, right? This adventure or this story. There's not much difference from a writer in the choice of words, and when that happens, or when they explain a situation in the story happens. There's no difference between any of us as artists. And I see that, like, as an animator, you need to understand the foundation, what you're trying to achieve before you start on it. You should be able to see it or have great reference, and then build from there. Once you have that, if you know how to do your own reference, then you do your own reference, and then you can show reference before even animating. I think these are tools that I teach. I write down 3 keywords that I find that resonate to me to help me focus. There's a paragraph on what's going on in the scene, some images kind of to paint a picture, paint a world. So any artist, whoever, it could be environment artist, as it could be an animator, or even the actor, when you're on set with the actor, to kind of see what the world is like, to feel, immerse himself in. And then there's reference, and I do practically all my reference. So because I find doing my own reference, I can embody and I know exactly what I'm looking for. And it helps make it easier when I'm communicating with, example, actors on set or even animators at the studio. Is like, this is what I was looking for. And they can say, that makes sense. Now they can add more on top of it, right? They can get already to another top and they can redo the reference that they want. They don't have to use my acting. They can say, I understand what you're trying to get. They could use that as a foundation and make it their own and bring something new to the table, do their own reference. Show me the reference. We haven't even talked about animating. We haven't talked about posing yet, but tell me that performance is coming from somewhere that's really thought out and that is potentially true and real, or would feel true and real for that character in that moment. Then we would go into, all right, it makes sense. I have the timing, I have the idea, I believe in it, right? Credibility, believability, and relatability, right? The rules that I like to teach. Now start posing it out. Are the pose saying the same message, right? We talk about communication, same message of what you're trying to achieve. If it is, then great. Then your posing starts, hey, your posing is strong. Does it have the right timing? Yeah, the rhythm, the beat, the tempo of the shot feels great, right? And then you just continue add on layer, but it has a phenomenal foundation, a clarity of, where you're going with a shot before you even start it. So to me, like that process helps me visualize. And then you can apply that in animation or even when you're in the sound booth or, doing voice acting. What do you bring to the table that another candidate doesn't, right? I think it's an honest question. It's a fair question. And what I'm hoping to get is finding what is the kind of glue or magic that you're going to bring to the team that either we're missing or that can really help us, pull through those hard months or get over these hard characters. Animators are casted, right? Like actors, right? And that's why I tell, like when you show your show reel and you're going to send to a studio, whether it's VFX, games, and whatever, your show reel is going to be casted saying, you can do this, right? When I'm hiring, I'm hiring a team, and whether it's a football team, hockey team, like I look at like who, in this team, when I pick an associate director or assistant director, the leads, the seniors, I'm picking people, and like you might be a phenomenal lead, you have phenomenal great ideas, you're super organized, you might not be the best animator, but man, you know how to make the best things happen. I know that. And then I'm like, okay, what I need now is an animator. And, I have a lot of animators, they're like monsters, they're beasts, but they're really, shy, right? They're in their little world. And that's all they want to do. They want to animate and they just want to be fed the shot. And I'm like, okay, that piece goes here. So depending on who I get, I'll build a team that way. But I am looking at everyone as individuals for who they are and what they bring, whether it's personal experience or experience that I know people have experience with. Not everyone has the same story, not everyone has the same walk of life. And when I bring in animators, like my past team, I was like, I really, really needed and wanted to have that female voice where we can say like, what would that be, right? And as much as I can relate to it, but there's some things I might miss. Right? I might, if I'm going to do something, I might miss something that, a female artist be like, no, that's not true. We don't do that. Right. And I'm like, are you sure? From my point of view, it seems like, like that. And I'm like, no. And the same thing if, you're doing a game that has, a lot of people from different backgrounds, right? Like how do they address things? How do they walk? How do they talk? How what are the words do they choose? How do they act? And you need artists coming from different backgrounds to at least, if you're going to create something real, it needs to be based off something real. If you're going to create something that's, that's going to touch and impact so many lives, you need to go where the truth is. And you got to, jump into it and find that truth and bring it into the piece, right? You talk Spider-Verse, I think it's great. Like it felt so true, right? Father-son relationship, right? Like being a new hero, the challenges, the obstacles that you have as an individual, there's truth in that was brought into, and that's why I think the movies is so amazing, so I mean, absolutely, if we need to, and I and that's my own opinion, but we need to, and I believe that we need to have more voices that understand each other, that can help make great experience or great film, great games, and that can, hopefully have a great impact on the audience life. Do not rely on the industry, man. Like, don't. Like, why? Like, the world has changed and it's phenomenally amazing. The fact that the community can support each other, right? As a director, I'm like, I was looking at some work, and I was like, man, this artist interests me, right? I'm like really interested. And then I passed out, but I'm looking into like trying to work with indie artists and buying their work and buying their art. I would like, if you're in that situation, you feel like, man, the industry is not seeing me for who I am or what I can bring or what I'm trying to do and my true passion and dedication and commitment and doing something really good. If they don't see it, you got to make your own path, right? Don't wait, do your own thing, right? If you have a comic, make your comic, start sharing it, that there is where I see a big industry is leading. Like the young artists that are coming out, they're like, oh, it's hard to get in industry. Well, why don't you have your own industry right now? You could jump into the big major studio industry, but the indie industry is phenomenally amazing. Like there's some artists that they work on their own and they do quite well. Create your own path. You have a choice. Remember, we talked about choice. You have a choice. The other side it's not choosing you. Well, you need to choose something else that will choose you. The community can't choose the community. We can choose each other, right? We can choose each other. Game developers, all these young game developers, they're making these cool side scrollers. Oh man, they're amazing. They're so fun, right? They try to get in maybe at, I don't know, EA or Bungie or something. It didn't work out, but they still want to do it. So they did their own little thing and it's working out just fine. And if it's working out just fine at your young career, imagine the potential when you're going to be doing it 25 years, right? So my advice is create a new path, right? If you're stuck, you just got to create a new path. When your drawing doesn't work, change it. Maybe you need to change your style, change the story, whatever, change it. It doesn't work. Got to stop, let go. Not easy. I know it's not easy, but you just got to do it, man.